The breakdown in relations started when some U.S. senators pushed for South Africa's exclusion from the Africa Growth and Opportunity Act, or AGOA, which provides a number of sub-Saharan African countries with duty-free access to the U.S. The U.S. State and Treasury Secretaries also decided to skip G20 meetings being held in South Africa earlier this year as part of the country's presidency of the global body. U.S. President Donald Trump then signed an executive order freezing financial aid to South Africa. He cited his disapproval of the government's new land policy and of a genocide case it brought to the International Court of Justice against America's Middle East ally, Israel. At the time, Trump said, and I quote, "South Africa is confiscating land and treating certain classes of people very badly." In this, the U.S. president was referring to white South Africans or Afrikaners, an assertion that the South African government said was based on a campaign of misinformation and propaganda. In March, the U.S. declared the South African ambassador to the U.S., Ibrahim Rasool, persona non grata over his criticism of the Trump administration and expelled him from the United States.
Welcome to the United States.
Last week, the Trump administration welcomed 49 Afrikaners to the U.S., granting them refugee status, having deemed them victims of what it called racial discrimination. Ramaphosa said Washington was making a big mistake.
Those people who have fled are not being persecuted. They are not being, hounded. They are not being treated badly. And they are leaving ostensibly because they don't want to embrace the changes that are taking place in our country in accordance with our Constitution. So we think that the American government has got the wrong end of the stick here, but we'll continue talking to them.
And he's got plenty of support within his cabinet.
The decision by the United States to confer refugee status to a group of Afrikaner South Africans is misinformed, as they do not fit the definition of refugees as set out in the 1951 Refugee Convention and its 1967 protocol. Cabinet further reiterated that allegations of discrimination are unfounded and do not meet the threshold of persecution required under both domestic and international refugee law.
Trump also threatened to boycott the G20 meeting to be held later this year in Johannesburg, where South Africa is expected to hand over its presidency to the U.S. Professor Patrick Bond, a professor of political economy at Wits University, says Ramaphosa will have a difficult task resetting relations during his visit to the Oval Office.
I happened to work with Ramaphosa about 35 years ago in Soweto. He's the best negotiator I've ever seen. He could drink the opposition, Afrikaner politicians, over the period of a whole night, doubling their whiskey intake. They were sleeping. He was still signing the documents. So I could have no doubt that he's about the best in the world for negotiating. But this is too difficult because Donald Trump is mercurial, erratic, and has these deep let's say, arrogant streaks. He learned some of them at the Wharton School of Finance in Philadelphia, where Elon Musk went as well. I happened to be a student there, right between them. And I can just tell you that the slogan there at the time, "Greed is good," came from the movie Wall Street.
There's great anticipation of the Ramaphosa-Trump meeting here in South Africa ahead of the Wednesday meeting. There are so many items, controversial or otherwise, up for discussion. However, it's still unclear what exactly will be on the agenda. Yoli Sanjamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.